Thank you to the state senators and assembly persons on the Legislative Joint Committee on the Arts. It's an honor and a pleasure to deliver to you the summary on the second annual Otis study of the creative economy in California. Also want to express appreciation to the California Arts Council for supporting this project. And as so many of you know, and as was mentioned earlier, now since 2007, the Otis College has supported a similar study for the Los Angeles region, which includes Los Angeles and Orange County. It's very exciting to work on this body of research. I've been an economist for, well, over 25 years and have done work on a variety of different industries and so on. Very few other areas of the economy draw the sort of passion from the stakeholders that we see in the arts and in arts education. Brought to bear on this particular project and more generally in their efforts. So this report, this summary is going to touch on some of the key findings in the report. I'll be defining the creative economy very briefly, talk about its size, the industries that make up the creative economy, and then evaluate its contribution to the state, and then also touch on some other aspects like arts education and earnings. So I want to get started by just talking about what is the creative economy. So this is a fairly recent body of research as far as economic analysis is concerned. This definition of the creative economy, its constituent industries, and just exactly what makes it beat and what kind of contribution it makes. So you see here that it's not just the traditional or cultural arts that we're talking about, like visual and performing arts and art galleries, but also the commercial application of art and design to so many industries that are important to this state economy. Just as I was listening to the Vice Chair talk, it occurred to me that everybody in this room should know that the largest source of export revenues for the state of California is not IT, but it's the royalties from the movies, television, and other kinds of intellectual property that are produced here by so many creative minds and distributed around the world. So you see that we have 11 key industries plus arts education, the beginning of that so-called talent pipeline. This is how the industries break down in terms of employment. There's 695,000 workers in all that make up the creative industry, or I should say the creative economy. And in percentage terms, the largest is the entertainment industry, followed by printing and publishing and by fashion. But you can see that several others make key contributions numerically to this overall picture.
So video games, is that, where's that considered?
Digital media would be video games, and admittedly, you know, there's not always a perfect one-to-one match between the data that we have and these industries that we've characterized. So, but I think it still gives us a very good idea of what, how this creative economy breaks down. For those of you who don't like visuals but prefer numbers, you can take a look at this table. Okay. So,
I think that's this audience.
So you can see 164,000 of the 695,000 workers are in the entertainment industry, publishing and printing 131,000, fashion 120,000. A little bit lower, you see visual and performing arts providers, 54,000. Roughly 8% of total employment. And these are just wage and salary jobs. I'll get into the self-employed component of this industry in just a little bit. So the top three account for 60% of all creative industry jobs, just to kind of get a sense of how concentrated this industry happens to be, or this branch of the economy. Now, you know, as everybody in the room knows, we've gone through a recession, we've come out of a recession, and this slide just shows how job losses were part and parcel of the recession for the creative economy from 2008 to 2010. You can see the drop in jobs. And then we, about 100,000 jobs, and then we've now recovered some, but not all of those jobs in the period since then. The data that's in this report only goes through 2013. That's the latest that's available for, from this particular data source. So as I mentioned a moment ago, it's not just wage and salary jobs, but also the self-employed that are a big part of this industry. And so you're adding almost another 50% to the head count here with 316,000 additional jobs among the self-employed who are in the creative economy. The largest chunk of those is found at the very bottom there in visual and performing arts providers. I just want to mention as a little asterisk to all this that you have individuals who might be wearing both hats, might be a wage and salary employee in the headcount there, and also may be working as a self-employed individual. So we're very careful not to mix and match these numbers too much because there could be some double counting. And then we also take a look at a third data set that talks about creative occupations. And so, you know, a graphics designer might very well work in a creative economy industry, but also could work for a bank or work, you know, in the state government. And so there are about 600,000 plus identified individuals who have some type of creative occupation. And you can see here that by creative occupation, as defined by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, it's not just art, design, entertainment, and media, but there are, you know, there are account executives in advertising that are part of the management side. There are people in architecture and engineering, as well as people on the technical side, because we know that there's this synergy between the arts and technology that is just thriving at the present time. Many of these people who have these occupations had to go through some work to get there. About half of the people who have creative occupations are in occupations that require at least a bachelor's degree, and then a significant percentage require more than that. So these are jobs that not only require a fair amount of education, and we're here to talk about arts education today, but they're also well compensated. So certainly the spectrum is quite wide. This is just a selection of occupations and the compensation that they get. The annual income for all occupations in California is about $40,000 from this data set. So you can see that this selection is above that median annual income. And we try to give you a selection, not just the traditional arts, but also on the IT side or digital media side, as well as fashion, to see what kind of job income range we're looking at. So let me just skip that. So one of the key reasons that we're here is to talk about the talent pipeline, and where it all starts is with arts education. Flying up from LA today, the airplane was at least half full of fourth graders who were coming to visit the Capitol. Many of them had never flown before, so as the plane was taking off, you could hear the oohs and the ahs. You know, remember what you were like when you were a fourth grader, that intellectual curiosity. And so if we begin by creating a situation where individuals are exposed at a young age to arts and all that goes with it, just think of what kind of potential that creates for those individuals as they get older. In K through 12 arts, based on data that we get from the State Department of Education, just this year-over-year change from 2012 to 2013, there was a decline in enrollment, a decline in teachers. Part of that's turning around. We would expect to be turning around in the 2014 numbers that have not yet been released. But so much of this is part and parcel of the recession and then the fiscal challenges that state and local government faced. Meanwhile, the private fine and performing arts segment of the economy, a little more capable of responding, has seen an increase in employment over that year's time frame. So that's a quick touch on the K through 12 arts education piece that you'll hear so much more about today. So what's the economic impact of this economy, this creative economy, on the broader California economy? We start with the 694,900 jobs that Randall mentioned and that was pointed out earlier. We look at the ripple effect through the economy. There are another 750,000 plus jobs due to downstream jobs that are created by different industries. And it comes up to almost 1.5 million jobs through that entire ripple effect throughout the economy. Similarly, the labor income, you can see, is not just the $71.4 billion in labor income for those jobs that are directly associated with the creative economy, but it, through the ripple effect, generates another a total of 113, almost 114 billion in jobs. This is how this ripple effect works. You know, you have a theater production or you have a movie or some other type of activity, and you have to engage people in, say, you need to have legal support. So you have to engage someone in professional and business services. You may use some catering. You're going to have to, you also have people who are on payroll, get paid. They spend their money on things like retail activities and so on and so forth. So this is the ripple effect that we're referring to when we talk about the linkages to these other industries and how we get from the 694,900 to the 1.4 million jobs. I already mentioned the 316,000 self-employed. When we take a look at this ripple effect, the creative economy creates approximately $294 billion in output for the economy. In value-added terms, it's up nearly $180 billion for the state as a whole. That's equivalent to over 8% of gross state product, which is a fairly large number when you consider that the state economy is the 9th largest, or by some measure, the 8th largest economy in the world. So we just became the 7th, so that's
Right.
perhaps partly because of exchange rates. So, and so it's not just a private economic impact, but also a positive impact to government. So here you see total taxes generated by virtue of this creative economy on an annual basis comes to $12 billion, almost $8 billion at the state level and $4 billion at the local level. So there's so many other things that we could talk about and highlight from this report, but I just want to really come back to where we came from. We want to point out that art is not just for art's sake. It's a key driver in the economy, and many of the important industries of the state economy are in this, what we have defined to be the creative economy. In this digital age where ideas are so important, attention to the arts and to arts education has never been more important. You'll hear more about the STEM to STEAM idea. There's so much that we can do and have to do to ensure the vitality and the future prosperity of the California economy. Thank you.